In a public park in Los Angeles, a construction crew put up 117 individual homes in 90 days on a patch of land barely bigger than 5 football fields. Not a shelter with cots lined up in rows, not a waiting list. 117 actual front doors, each one with a lock that only one person held the key to. That is one entry on this list, and it is not even the most impressive one. Because across the country right now, in cities most people have never thought to check, ordinary Americans are quietly proving something that sounds almost naive to say out loud. That the housing crisis nobody seems able to fix at the federal level is being fixed in pieces by pastors, veterans, architects, and one guy who couldn't stop thinking about a friend he lost. By the end of this list, the question won't be whether it's possible. It'll be why it isn't happening everywhere yet. Here's the scale of what these builders are up against. On a single night in January 2025, an estimated 745,652 people were experiencing homelessness in the United States, a number that actually dropped 3.4% from the year before, the first decline in nearly a decade. But inside that improving headline is a harder number. 155,750 people counted as chronically homeless, the highest figure ever recorded. That's not a problem one shelter solves. It's a problem that needs 10 different answers, in 10 different states, tried 10 different ways. So that's exactly what this list is. Coming in at number 10, the cheapest, fastest entry on this entire list. A house you could build in less time than it takes to sit through a movie. In Everett, Washington, a company called Pallet, founded in 2016 by Amy King and her husband after 2 decades running a home building business, makes prefabricated shelters that assemble in under an hour with a cordless drill and no crane required. The city of Tacoma was Pallet's first customer, and it now owns 58 of the units, through which roughly 570 individual people have passed on their way toward permanent housing. Each 64-square-foot cabin runs between $3,500 and $5,500, comes with a locking door, a bed, insulation, and heating, and can be trucked to a vacant lot and occupied the same week it arrives. People assume a home for someone coming off the street takes years of permits, architects, and millions of dollars. Pallet takes an afternoon. If a $3,500 cabin proves you don't need a construction company to change someone's circumstances, number 9 proves you don't even need a company at all. Just one man who wouldn't let go of an idea. In Newfield, New York, a home builder named Carmen Guidi returned from a mission trip to Haiti in 2010, changed by what he'd seen, and after a friend living homeless in the woods near his home took his own life, Guidi decided to do something concrete. What he built is second wind cottages, 18 single-room bungalows, each 16 feet by 20 feet, spread across 7 acres, everyone with its own bathroom, kitchenette, and bed. Guidi still runs his construction business by day and the cottages by evenings and weekends, and the mission statement he wrote for the nonprofit is deliberately small in its ambition: to house and walk with people toward restored lives, one man at a time, not thousands. In 2018, members of the Travis Manion Foundation, Gold Star family members who had lost a loved one in military service, traveled to Newfield to help build more cottages specifically for homeless veterans, framing and roofing structures with their own hands in honor of relatives they'd lost. Nobody believed him when he started. Now, there's a waiting list. Second Wind gave men a room of their own to rebuild in. Coming in at number 8, a Detroit nonprofit found a way to give people something Second Wind never promised: the deed. Cass Community Social Services, led by Reverend Faith Fowler, broke ground on its tiny homes project in 2016 and welcomed its first 6 residents in late August of 2017 out of 122 people who had applied. The finished neighborhood holds 25 homes, ranging from 250 to 400 square feet, each on its own, roughly 30 by 100-foot lot. The residents rent for 1 year at a time, and after 7 consecutive years of on-time payments, they own the house outright. Homes expected to be worth between $40,000 and $50,000. It is, according to Fowler's own organization, the only rent-to-own tiny home development of its kind in the country. Fowler has been blunt about why. Many of the applicants had never held a mortgage, a lease, or even a bank account in their own name, and the project was built to address what she calls asset inequality as much as homelessness itself. The first tenants ranged in age from 24 to 74 and earned an average income of just $988 a month. That is not a typo. 7 years of rent and the deed is yours. Cass Community solved ownership for one city. Number 7 is trying to solve it for an entire country, one state at a time, and it's aimed squarely at the people who put their lives on the line to protect it. Veterans Community Project broke ground in Kansas City, Missouri, at 89th and Troost, with 49 tiny homes between 240 and 320 square feet, offered completely free to homeless veterans for up to 2 years, paired with a case manager and wraparound services covering everything from dental care to financial literacy. Then it kept going. There are now VCP villages built or underway in Longmont, Colorado, with 26 homes, St. Louis, Missouri, with 50, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with 25, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with 40, and Glendale, Arizona, with 50, and Oklahoma City and Dallas are next. Every village follows the same rule. No veteran pays rent, and every resident gets an assigned case manager who helps them apply for benefits, find work, and eventually move into permanent housing of their own, usually within about 2 years. Veterans made up just over 32,495 people, or roughly 4%, of the national homeless count in 2025, the lowest that figure has ever been recorded, and VCP's founders will tell you they intend to make it lower still. Veterans Community Project runs top-down, built by an organization for a specific group it set out to serve. Number 6 flips that completely. Quixote Village in Olympia, Washington, started as a self-governed homeless encampment known as Camp Quixote, whose residents organized their own rules and eventually partnered with a non-profit called PANSA to build something permanent. On Christmas Eve of 2013, residents moved into 30 finished cottages, each just 144 square feet, arranged around a shared building with a communal kitchen, showers, and meeting space. The residents still govern the village themselves, holding regular community meetings, setting their own house rules, and taking turns on chores and upkeep. A structure PANSA carried over directly from how the original tent encampment had organized itself for years on a series of church-owned lots before the permanent site was ever built. The build cost roughly $88,000 per cottage, about half what a conventional studio apartment costs to build in the same region. And it became enough of a model that the New York Times held it up as a national template within months of opening, sending delegations from other cities to walk the grounds and copy the blueprint. If a self-governed village can be built for $88,000 a cottage, Number 5 found a way to do it for nearly 40% less, while handing residents something Quixote doesn't: an ownership stake. Emerald Village Eugene, developed by the nonprofit Square One Villages on 1.1 acres in Eugene, Oregon, houses up to 33 people across 22 tiny homes ranging from 160 to 300 square feet. More than 200 local businesses donated materials and labor to bring the total build cost down to around $55,000 per unit, land included. Residents don't just rent, they join a housing cooperative, paying a $50 monthly membership fee that builds a small cash-out asset if they ever choose to leave. As of 2024, total monthly housing costs there ran between $264 and $366, utilities included. More than 60% of residents are 55 or older, a population homelessness researchers increasingly flag as the fastest-growing group living on the street. Emerald Village kept costs low for people who could largely still manage on their own. Number 4 does the opposite. It spends real money on the people the system had already given up on, because for once, the math actually favored doing so. The cottages at Hickory Crossing opened in Dallas, Texas in 2016, a $6.8 million 50-cottage development on 3.5 acres, each cottage 420 square feet, built specifically for the city's most chronically homeless residents, people cycling through jail cells, emergency rooms, and psychiatric holds. Before housing, each of those individuals cost Dallas taxpayers an average of $40,000 a year in public services. After being housed, under a Housing First model, that number dropped to roughly $15,000 per person, a savings the county projected at over $1.3 million. Local architecture nonprofit building Community Workshop designed each cottage to be built cheaply, but never to look institutional. Real windows, a covered porch, a door with a lock and a doorbell. Small details meant to signal to residents who had spent years being told where to sleep that this particular door was finally theirs to control. Skeptics at the time called it an expensive experiment on the hardest possible population. The people this list is easiest to overlook, the ones without a sympathetic origin story, are the ones this project decided to house first. Dallas made the case that housing its most expensive residents was cheaper than not housing them. Number 3 made a different case entirely, that scale itself doesn't have to be slow. In 2022, Hope of the Valley Family Services completed the Arroyo Seco Tiny Home Village on a 6.8-acre site inside Arroyo Seco Park in Los Angeles. 117 individual 64-square-foot units plus 224 non-congregate beds, built and opened in 90 days flat. It's described by multiple outlets as the largest tiny home village in the United States. Each unit comes with heating, air conditioning, a window, and a lock, and residents typically stay just 3 to 6 months, while an on-site case manager works to place them in a permanent apartment before their time in the village runs out. Arroyo Seco is one of 6 villages. Hope of the Valley now operates across Los Angeles County, together housing more than 900 people at any given time, at roughly $55,000 per unit. City officials have called it the least expensive form of homeless housing, available anywhere in the county, cheaper per bed than a hotel voucher, and dramatically cheaper than a shelter bed with round-the-clock staffing. 90 days, not 90 weeks. Arroyo Seco proved a village that size could rise in a single season. Number 2 proved you don't have to stop at one village at all. The Low Income Housing Institute, based in Seattle, now operates or supports 18 tiny house villages spread across Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, Skyway, and Tukwila, making it one of the largest single providers of tiny house village shelter in the entire country. Those villages collectively support more than 2,000 people every year, some built on vacant city-owned lots, some on land donated by churches, each one small enough, usually a few dozen residents, to run with a handful of staff and a resident code of conduct rather than an institutional set of rules. Of the 1,600 individuals Lehigh tracked through its program, 55% moved on into permanent housing after leaving. 55% is not a rounding error. It's a majority of people who arrived with nowhere to go and left with a lease. Lehigh didn't build one solution and stop. It built an entire regional system, village by village, county by county, treating tiny house villages less like an experiment and more like standard infrastructure, something a city plans for the same way it plans for bus routes or fire stations. 18 villages, one mission, repeated across 5 cities. But nothing on this list, nothing most people watching this have ever personally seen, comes close to what happened on 51 acres of scrubland outside Austin, Texas. Number 1 is Community First. Village, and it isn't really a housing project at all. It's a town. Founded by Alan Graham, a real estate developer turned homeless outreach worker who started the ministry Mobile Loaves and Fishes in the late 1990s, Community First. Village opened its gates in 2015 on 51 acres in northeast Travis County. It marked 10 years of operation in October of 2025, with more than 470 residents living inside it. Men and women who had, in many cases, spent years or decades chronically homeless. What makes it different from every other entry on this list isn't the housing itself, though the tiny homes, canvas-sided cottages, and RVs are real, with rents running between $225 and $550 a month. It's everything built around them: a medical and dental clinic, a working farm, a blacksmith shop, a woodworking shop, an art house, a community market where residents sell what they make and keep the profit, an outdoor amphitheater that hosts movie nights and concerts, and a chapel. Nearly every resident is given a job on site, tending the farm, running the market, staffing, the wood shop, often the first paid, reliable work some of them have held in years. Graham has said for years that the real failure in how America treats homelessness isn't a lack of housing, it's a lack of community, and that a house without relationships built around it just becomes a nicer place to be alone. In 2022, Mobile Loaves and Fishes broke ground on a second phase, 127 additional acres, and a plan to build 1,400 more homes, eventually bringing the village's capacity toward 1,900 residents. Some of those new homes are being built with a construction company called Icon, using a 3D printer that extrudes concrete layer by layer, part of a design initiative aiming to bring build costs under $99,000 per home, a number that would have sounded like science fiction a decade ago and is now sitting in a field outside Austin, curing in the Texas sun. Outside researchers, journalists, and housing officials from across the country have toured the village specifically to study whether its model, community first, housing second, can be replicated elsewhere. Most conclude the housing part is the easy part to copy. The community part is the part nobody has matched yet. He didn't build houses. He built a town on purpose for the people every other town had stopped seeing. If a project like this is the kind of thing that makes you want to see what happens next in this space, that's worth following, because these builders aren't slowing down. They're comparing notes. Subscribing means you catch the next real one before it's finished, not after. A $3,500 cabin in Everett, Washington, and a 51-acre town outside Austin, Texas, are solving the same problem with almost nothing in common except this. Someone decided waiting for a perfect, permanent, government-funded fix wasn't good enough, so they built something real instead. None of these 10 projects required a miracle. None of them required unlimited money. They required a lot in some cases, and shockingly little in others. A drill, 7 acres, 1 grieving man, 200 donating businesses, a 3D printer. What they all required, every single time, was someone willing to start before the whole plan was finished. That's what this list actually proves. Not that homelessness is solved, not that it's simple, just that it is, in 10 very different places across America, being answered, cottage by cottage, village by village, acre by acre. If you want to see what happens when this exact same instinct, build first, ask permission later, gets pointed at an entire city block with a robot doing the printing, the video queued up next walks through exactly that.